And we are 28 days away from the November midterms, and border security is a big issue for voters, especially dangerous drugs like fentanyl flooding our country. I think this is a very important topic to address, and that is why I want to talk about it here. We've been talking about it here on One America. In fact, the DEA is warning about brightly colored fentanyl used to target children. And I want to bring in former DEA agent Derek Maltz to talk about the national crisis. Derek, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you for having me, Stella.
Of course, I had you on just a couple weeks ago, and I think this topic is so important. I wanted to have you back on. Since we talked, we are hearing more and more about fentanyl-related deaths. I mean, for example, in Cincinnati, Hamilton County health officials issuing a public health alert because they had 16 overdose deaths in just a span of a few days. And Derek, this is just one county in the nation, not to mention all the teens just dying in different places across the nation.
Right. The DEA administrator, Stella, she did a mass poisoning alert to state and local police and to the national media back in April because we had an alarming trend, the brightly colored fentanyl targeting young Americans. So the warning went out because we saw this stuff in like 18 states. There's more than 20 now. But there was a frightening trend that was emerging on the mass poisonings, not just Hamilton County, Ohio, but back in like September, Kankakee County, Illinois, there were 8 poisonings, 2 deaths. Then we had Onondaga County up in New York in August with 14 poisonings. We had Knox County in Tennessee in the first 11 days of August, 11 dead. The fire department responded to over 100 calls. So this mass poisoning thing is going to continue because the pills and the fentanyl is everywhere.
Are the cartels operating with impunity? Because although CBP is able to seize millions of pills, what about those that are not caught? I mean, the cartels are pretty sophisticated in the way that they smuggle drugs, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. And that is a really good point because some Americans think that because we're making all these seizures that everything's great, the government is working. No, the border is wide open. It's a disaster. And right now, the cartels are the enemy of our children. They're taking advantage of the weak security at the border. They're killing more Americans than any terrorist organization in the history of this country. So we have a big problem. They're working with terrorists like Hezbollah, which we've known for years. And the Sinaloa cartel, as an example, look what they're doing in Nogales, Arizona. Look at the millions of pills that the Border Patrol and CBP seized in the month of August, like we've never seen. But just like you said, Stella, if that's what they're seizing, just think of what's already in the streets of America, because the experts say we get about 10%, if that.
We're looking at the video, and I'm hearing you say, a million here, a million there. Production is clearly off the charts. What is this new dangerous drug you say that is also 10 times stronger than fentanyl? Something new that's been circulating in our nation?
Right. So we have a class of drugs called MPS, which is new psychoactive substances. They're synthetic opioids. They're made in labs like in China, right? Wuhan style labs in China. They're making this very potent and deadly synthetic drug, and they're now mixing it into the pills as well. We've had deaths of people in America now, not just from like isonitazine, but etonitazine. And then pyro, it's one of the street drugs on the street. So it's like isonitazine, nitazine, etonitazine, and it's all these exotic, synthetic, very, very potent. They're not plant-based. That's the key. It's made in laboratories. It's a chemical weapon, and it's being used against our kids and our future generation. And that's my biggest fear, that China's now in the phase 3 of their attack because they are working very closely with the Mexican cartels. They're also not only providing the precursor chemicals to make the drugs in Mexico, they're doing the money laundering services to pick up millions of dollars of cash in America and launder the money back to Mexico for the cartels to get their money. So the chemicals and the money are two critical components of this crisis that we're in. And China is behind the scenes destabilizing the country as the cartels are getting rich.
Yeah, they're winning. We're losing. You clearly say what's happening is unacceptable, and the White House should be doing nightly PSAs on primetime TV. As you're saying this, I mean, this is not only a national security issue, this is a public health emergency, Derek.
Stella, I work with thousands of families. We had a rally down in September, at 17th of September, to bring awareness to the problem. You know what the number one concern from all these families is? How come I didn't get a warning? How come the
Hmm.
government is not telling me about this fentanyl? It's poison. These are not overdose deaths. These are mass poisonings, and the government has an obligation to warn the public. CDC, Department of Health and Human Services, right? The only one that's really warning America is the DEA, and they're a law enforcement agency. They're not so their primary mission isn't to warn the public, but they're doing education. But you know who else is doing all the education now? The parents. They have nonprofit groups. They're doing education in schools. They're creating, all kinds of reference materials so they can educate mothers and fathers, grandmas and grandpas, uncles and aunts around the country that this is something that we've never seen in the history of this country. And too many people think it's just another drug. The kids shouldn't be using drugs. The parents are bad parents. No, we have 13-year-olds going online in houses around America, ordering up these deadly pills on the social media apps, just like you would order a pizza
Wow.
for delivery. And they're dying in their bedrooms, and the parents are just devastated. So the message has to go out. We need athletes, we need role models, we need influencers, we need celebrities, and we need the message to go out on social media sites, because the kids are not watching mainstream media. They're
Hmm.
not watching cable news. They're not. They're watching the reels on social media apps. And
Yeah.
that's what we need to attack.
And you've said it before, it's called the One Pill Can Kill campaign. I want to talk a little bit more about this. What do you say to those who say, you know what, the border not being secure, fentanyl pouring in is just rhetoric coming from the right? They say the seizures at the border are proof there's plenty of work that's being done to keep us safe.
Right. So a couple of things. The first thing I always say, it's not a red or a blue issue. It's a red, white, and blue issue. It's killing all Americans, and Americans should unite on this. That's why there's a bipartisan resolution being put forth by Tim Ryan and Lauren Boebert to declare fentanyl a weapon of mass destruction. That's why 18 attorney generals have signed on to this movement to declare it a weapon of mass destruction. But what I would say to all of these people, these political people, is why don't they go down to the border like I did in April and listen to the Border Patrol and these leaders in Department of Public Safety, and heard about the 9,000 drones that are coming into America from Mexico, and they're surveilling our Border Patrol agents. And they also, we know, they drop explosives on their adversaries in Mexico. So that can happen tomorrow. What about all these migrants that are being raped and sexually abused and put into stash houses on the border in 110-degree temperatures with no water, no air conditioning? What about all these migrants that are being packed into tractor trailers and are cooking to death on the border? So these people that are saying this, they don't even go to the border. Where's our border czar? She's not down at the border. She went to Texas on a fundraiser. She doesn't even go down to Rio Grande Valley where the action is happening. That's how you learn. You talk to the experts on the front lines. You don't talk to the politicians and the bureaucrats in Washington.
Yeah, you got to do the job, right? Go out there, go see it, go speak to the people just like you did. Former DEA Agent Derek Maltz, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for bringing this issue to light. It's a very important one. We will stay on top of it here.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.